I set out for rural Mexico 2 months ago. I was 32 and wanted to connect with authentic cultures for my travel blog. I found a tiny village nestled in the Sierra Madre Mountains, dusty and seemingly untouched by modern life. I stayed in a family-run guest house, eager to learn about their ways. One evening, after dinner, I stepped outside. The sun had just disappeared, leaving a deep purple sky. I heard unusual sounds echoing off the walls of the buildings. They were rhythmic chants. My feet moved on their own as I wandered toward the plaza. Villagers dressed in bright clothes had gathered, dancing fiercely. Their movements pulled me in, almost hypnotic. But something felt off. Their faces were intense, focused, eyes glossed over like they were in a trance. My heart raced and I hesitated. Days passed and the atmosphere grew thicker. I spotted people at the edge of the nearby forest performing rituals in hushed tones. The vibe felt heavy whenever I stepped outside. I noticed strange symbols carved into the wood near my guest house. They were unsettling, almost alive. I really wanted to ask the locals about them, but whenever I did, their faces dimmed and they looked away. I felt off balance, like I was missing something vital. At night, my sleep was fitful. I attended the celebrations, but gaps began to appear in my memory. I would wake up confused, unsure of how I returned to my room. Each morning, my stomach knotted tighter with unease, and unanswerable questions piled in my mind. It felt like there was something lurking just out of reach. One night, I gathered my courage to speak to an older woman who seemed to know more. As I approached, she turned to me with dark, deep-set eyes. "Do you really want to know?" she asked. Something in her voice felt off, like a warning. I felt the weight of the whole village surrounding me. They danced, their chants swirling like a fog. I was frozen. My breath caught. Was it celebration, or was there something darker hidden in their customs? I turned to leave, but when I glanced back, the villagers were all staring at me. Their eyes pierced through me, filled with an unsettling intensity. Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. He stood still, the air prickling around us. I gasped, hardly able to breathe. "Why are you here?" he asked. His voice echoed, and it didn't sound right. Panic surged through me, and I turned to run, but I felt stuck, as if I were in a dream that wouldn't end. I stumbled backward and fell. The chanting grew louder, drowning everything else. I looked up just in time to see the villagers surround me, their faces now twisted with something akin to glee. "Join us," they sang, pulling me into their midst. Their movements closed around me like vines, and I felt the chill of their gaze. Then the world faded, and I was spun into darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was no longer in the plaza. I was somewhere else, somewhere I couldn't recognize. The faces of the villagers loomed at the edges of my vision, but they were not smiling anymore. They were watching, waiting. I realized then that I was not just a traveler in their village. I was part of something much larger, something I had never wanted to discover. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It was absolute, unnerving. My breath came out in short bursts, trying to piece together what had just happened. The villagers circled around me, their faces still blank, staring with wide, unblinking eyes. The last shreds of that haunting chant faded, replaced by an eerie stillness that felt like it could swallow me whole. I took a step back, trying to create some distance. I looked around my new surroundings, hoping to spot something familiar. But there was nothing. The space looked like a different part of the village, rocky and surrounded by dense trees. Muffled sounds came from deeper in the forest, but I couldn't identify them. I turned back, ready to demand answers, but the villagers stood rigid, as if time had frozen for them. Then, one among them stepped forward. It was the older woman I had tried to speak with earlier. Her dark eyes seemed to swallow the light around her. "You wanted to know," she said, slowly, almost thoughtfully. "Now you are a part of it." Her words felt like a knife turning in my gut. I didn't want to be part of anything. Part of what? I struggled to find my voice, but it came out shaky. "What do you mean?" She took a breath, and the others leaned in closer, their faces mere inches from mine. "You seek truth, but truth is not free. It binds you." Just then, the ground trembled beneath my feet. I glanced down, alarmed, and saw a deep crack forming, jagged and ominous. My pulse quickened. As I looked up again, the villagers' expressions had morphed into something more sinister, their lips curling slightly, revealing the hint of a smile that was anything but friendly. Suddenly, from the shadows, a low growl echoed, sending shivers down my spine. I spun around, scanning the edge of the trees. A figure emerged, a large creature shrouded in darkness. It moved gracefully, yet I could sense its predatory nature. I felt like prey, exposed and trapped. "Don't be afraid," the woman said, her voice now a soothing whisper that felt completely at odds with the chaos around us. "Embrace it." "Embrace what?" I shouted back, frustration boiling over. Answers! I needed answers! But instead, she merely gestured to the beast, now fully revealed as it stepped into the thin light. I could make out its features, long, sinewy limbs, glowing eyes, skin that seemed to shift like shadows. It was wrong, utterly unnatural. My instincts told me to run, but my feet felt like concrete blocks. As if sensing my turmoil, the creature drew closer, and I could almost hear its thoughts. "This is your moment," it seemed to say, and my heart pounded in response. It felt like an invitation, but the implications were horrifying. That's when I spotted something glimmering in the dirt near where I stood. I bent down, instinctively reaching out for it despite my gut screaming at me to stay away. It was a necklace, intricately carved, with the same unsettling symbols I had seen everywhere in the village. I felt a jolt of recognition. What had I stumbled into? Then everything went dark again. As I struggled to comprehend what was happening, I felt the grip of the villagers tightening around me. My vision blurred as I felt myself slipping away, and just before consciousness faded, I heard a collective gasp from the crowd. What had they just witnessed, and what was coming next? I woke with a jolt, gasping for air. My surroundings were different now. I lay on a cold stone table, nestled under the canopy of trees, their twisted branches forming a groaning veil overhead. My head throbbed. I blinked several times, trying to focus, fighting the urge to panic. The villagers were no longer around, but the echo of their gazes still lingered in my mind. Had I imagined it all? I sat up slowly, and as I did, I caught sight of the necklace, still clutched in my hand. It felt warm against my palm, a pulse of energy that made my heart race. I quickly tossed it down, as if it burned. "Where am I?" I whispered into the quiet, my voice cracked and hoarse. No response came. I swung my legs over the side of the stone table and stood, unsteady on my feet. I scanned the area, noticing jagged stones piled in a circle around me, giving off an ancient vibe. The air was thick with something musty, almost like damp earth, combined with a hint of something metallic. Then I heard it, a rustling sound from somewhere deep in the forest. My instincts kicked in, and I crouched low. The growl I had heard before rumbled again, more pronounced this time. It echoed off the trees, and my muscles tensed with fear. My heart raced, but I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. Slowly, I crept toward the source of the noise, inching along the edges of the clearing. With each movement, the rustling became louder, almost like a call. I needed to know what was out there. I pushed aside some brambles and peeked through the trees. What I saw made my stomach drop. A massive creature, the same one I had seen before, prowled in the underbrush. Its eyes glowed, piercing through the darkness. But now, beside it, was something else, a smaller creature that resembled it, but had softer features. Where the larger one suggested danger and malice, this one looked curious. My breath caught in my mouth, throat. I didn't know if I should run or stay. Would they see me? Would they feel my presence like the villagers had? Before I could decide, the bigger creature turned its head, fixing its glowing eyes on me. I couldn't suppress the urge to retreat further into the shadows. But as I backed away, the small one stepped out from behind its companion, its gaze fixed intently on me. There was something familiar about its look, somber, yet innocent. "Wait," I muttered, trying to calm my racing heart. I'm not here to hurt you." The words felt foolish, and I questioned whether the creature could understand me at all. Suddenly, a rustle came from behind me. I spun around, and my eyes widened. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, one of the villagers, the older woman. The look on her face was unreadable. Was she a part of this too? "Come," she beckoned softly, her voice weaving through the night air like a spell. "You must learn." I hesitated. Then the smaller creature stepped closer, tilting its head, and there it was again, an invitation. Could I trust her? As the woman held out her hand, something deep within me twisted. I felt a pull that I couldn't explain. I moved forward, stepping into a world I might never understand. But something urged me on. Then I noticed a faint light flickering in the distance, illuminating part of the forest. What lies ahead, I wondered, my heart pounding in rhythm with the unknown. And with that thought, I followed. The path ahead was uneven, littered with roots and fallen branches. My foot caught on something, sending me stumbling. I had to catch my balance, my heart racing more with each step I took toward the flickering light. The older woman led the way, her presence somehow grounding against the chaotic pulse of the forest. As we walked, I stole glances at the small creature. It trailed close behind me, its curious eyes wide and almost pleading. There was a bond growing between us, something deeper than fear. A voice inside me said to trust it, but I was still swimming in uncertainty. Eventually, we broke through the underbrush and into a clearing. A circle of larger stones surrounded a small fire that danced spiritedly in the center. Shadows flickered against the trees, casting strange shapes and patterns. The aura felt alive, charged with an energy I couldn't quite grasp. "What is this place?" I asked softly, my voice trembling. The old woman turned to face me, her expression serious. "This is the heart of the forest," she said. "Here, the old magic still breathes. You have to learn why you were brought here." I glanced around, trying to digest her words. The stones felt ancient, their surfaces scarred with symbols I couldn't decipher. They hummed faintly, as if echoing stories of ages past. Before I could process anything further, the smaller creature stepped forward, its form illuminate the firelight. I noticed something strange at its throat, a glimmering pendant that looked exactly like the necklace I had tossed aside. It gripped my attention, and with a sudden rush of understanding, a wave of warmth washed over me. "That belongs to me," I gasped, instinctively reaching out for it. Confusion clouded the creature's eyes as it took a step back, unsure. The old woman quickly raised her hand, halting my advance. "It is not just a necklace, it's a key," she explained, "a connection between you and this world." I felt the weight of her words. The woods, the two creatures, the villagers, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle I had yet to understand. But what did I hold the key to? Then I heard a distant howling, a deep, resonating sound that sent a chill down my spine. The playful flicker of the fire dimmed, shadows stretching unnaturally. "My time is short," the old woman warned. "You must bond with the creature first, before they arrive. Only then will you be ready to face what comes next." My mind raced.
I had no idea how to bond with a creature that seemed so alien to me. I looked back at the small one, and it met my gaze, its eyes filled with an understanding that calmed my rising fear. Trust, it seemed to say. Just as I took a step closer, the howling intensified, echoing through the trees like a warning. Suddenly, I felt a shift in the air, a presence that was far more sinister than I'd anticipated. I froze, heart hammering. My eyes darted around the clearing, searching for the source of the sound. That's when I saw it. Dark silhouettes flitting between the trees, drawing closer. I had to act quickly, or I might lose everything. In a flash, confusion turned to urgency. I had to bond with the creature, and fast, or whatever was lurking in the shadows would close in on us. My instinct told me to crouch down, to make myself smaller and less threatening. I slowly lowered myself, trying to convey openness. "Come here," I whispered, stretching my hand toward the small creature. It hesitated, glancing back at the old woman for reassurance. I held my breath, willing it to trust me. "With your heart," the old woman instructed, her voice low but steady. "Show it your intention." I focused on my feelings, weaving warmth and acceptance into my thoughts. I thought about how desperately I wanted to understand, that I didn't want to hurt it. A flicker of understanding crossed the creature's face, and it cautiously stepped forward. The howling grew louder, deepening the tension in the air. I felt a shudder of dread, but I held my ground. The creature edged closer and nudged my hand with its soft forehead. A rush of connection surged through me. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth spread. Images flashed in my mind, glimpses of forests, of creatures flitting through the branches, of laughter. Shared around fires. I could feel the heartbeat of the forest blend with my own, as if we were resonating on the same frequency. Suddenly, I was jolted back to reality. The howling was now deafening, reverberating through the trees. I opened my eyes, and the clearing had darkened. Whatever was approaching was close. The old woman was shifting, her face grim. "They are here," she warned, tension rippling in her voice. She clasped her hands together, murmuring under her breath. The dark figures, once shadows flitting between the trees, began to ripple into corporeal forms. 3 sleek and ominous creatures emerged from the darkness. Their eyes glimmered like deep voids. They moved with a predatory grace, and I felt a chill creep through me. Panic clawed at my throat. I looked at the small creature by my side, now steadfast and resolute, as if ready to defend me. "What do they want?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "They seek what you've awakened," the old woman replied, her tone grave. "The key you possess, it is both a blessing and a curse." As the eerie howling reached a crescendo, the ground trembled beneath us. The towering trees seemed to sway under the weight of the encroaching darkness. Each of the creatures advanced, a cruel intent shining in their eyes. I needed to act. I still felt the warmth from the bond I'd made with the small creature. "Stay with me," I shouted, urgency propelling me forward. "We can face them together." In that moment, a light burst from the pendant around the small creature's neck, illuminating the clearing. The shadows recoiled, hesitating in their advance. But they wouldn't be stopped for long. What had I awakened? Before I could process it, the old woman shouted, "Use the key! You must unleash your energy before they collect what belongs to them." Then, everything went black. I gasped as the darkness swallowed me, a chill racing down my spine. It felt like falling into an endless void. Then, without warning, light exploded around me, bright and blinding. I blinked, disoriented, as the familiar scent of earth and foliage filled my lungs. I was back in the clearing, though it wasn't as I remembered. An ethereal glow enveloped the small creature, making it appear larger and more magnificent. The pendant around its neck pulsed with an intensity that made my heart race. The howling had stopped. The eerie quiet held a weight that pressed against me. I scanned the area, searching for signs of the dark figures, but they were nowhere in sight. The old woman stood in front of me, her eyes wide with an emotion that tugged at the pit of my stomach, fear mixed with something else, something unnameable. "You did it," she said, almost disbelieving. "What did I do?" I demanded, finding my voice just above a whisper. "What happened to those creatures?" "They hesitated when you called upon the energy within you." Her voice trembled slightly. "But they
Won't be gone for long. They will return stronger, more determined to take what they believe is theirs." What do they want from me? Panic flickered at the edges of my mind. What is this key you talked about? The old woman took a step closer, studying my expression. The bond you formed with that creature has awakened ancient energy. They want the power of the forest, a force you now command. I looked down at the small creature, now radiating warmth and light. It gazed back at me, a mixture of trust and resolve in its eyes. "How do I use this energy?" I asked, desperation creeping in. "The bond is your guide," she explained, encouraging me. "But you must learn to embrace it in ways that would strengthen your connection. Each experience, each challenge brings you closer to understanding." The trees rustled ominously, a warning. I turned sharply. The shadows were not far behind. I could feel them gathering again, lurking just beyond the edge of the light. Without thinking, I reached for the creature's pendant. As my fingers brushed against it, a surge of power around us. It felt like current coursing through my body, connecting my heartbeat with every pulse of the forest. "Focus! You must channel that energy," the old woman insisted, her voice firm amidst the chaos. Heart racing, I closed my eyes once more. I remembered the images, nature, laughter, and warmth. Channeling every ounce of intention, I pushed outwards. A blinding light spread from the pendant, casting the darkness aside. But just as quickly as it surfaced, the light flickered and dimmed, as if it were struggling against an unseen weight. That's when I saw it, the forms emerging again, closer, more defined. They were not alone. Dark tendrils, twisting and writhing, began to snake toward us. "Keep your focus," the old woman shouted, urging me onward. The fear surged again. I didn't want to fail, but my power felt too weak, and the shadows were hungry. I was about to lose everything again, and in that instant I realized, with every heartbeat, the bond I forged might be our only hope. The fear almost paralyzed me, but I pushed through it. I could feel the little creature beside me, its light waning yet fierce. I had to find a way to strengthen our connection, to become the force that could repel the shadows. "Think of what unites you," the old woman's voice cut through the heavy silence. "The creature shares your heart. Trust it." I took a deep breath, letting her words settle in. I needed to let go of my fear and embrace the bond. In that moment, an image flashed in my mind. The warmth of the sun on my face, the rustling leaves above me, and the laughter of children playing in a field. I reached deeper, focusing on those memories, allowing them to swirl around me like a canopy of light. The creature responded to my intent, its glow brightening as warmth spread through me. "Hold it," the old woman urged again, her eyes locked on the dark shapes edging closer. "Let it flow through you." The pendant throbbed against my palm, and as I pushed my energy outward, the light surged once more, sweeping through the clearing. It felt alive, wrapping around me and the creature like a protective shield. But the shadows were relentless. Dark tendrils reached out, brushing against the edges of the light. I strained against the pressure, my heart racing as I fought to hold on to this energy. "You can't take it," I shouted, desperation rising within me.
The shadows writhed, and an unsettling growl echoed through the clearing. A voice, deep and sinister, curled through the air. "You think you can stop me, child? You have no idea what you're dealing with." I froze, paralyzed by the sound. It was unlike anything I had ever heard, crawling into my brain. "What are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "I am the darkness you fear. I am the one who hungers for the energy of the forest. And now," it hissed, "I will take it, and you." The old woman stepped forward, fury flashing in her eyes. "You will not harm her," she yelled. But the shadows laughed, a chilling sound that tore through the stillness. The tension built like a thunderstorm, and I felt the energy begin to wane again, the light flickering like a candle caught in a draft. "No, we have to stay strong," I cried out, desperation washing over me. Just then, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, a glimmering figure weaving through the trees behind the dark mass. It was another creature, unlike the one next to me. This one seemed to dance, a light shimmering off its form, illuminating everything around it. "Over there," I shouted, pointing it out to the old woman. "What is that?" "The Guardian," she exclaimed, her voice cracking with hope. "It can help us." I focused back on the pendant, channeling my energy toward the Guardian, urging it to join us. "Come on, we need you." With renewed determination, I extended my hand towards the new creature, pulling from the depths of my heart. I felt the energy shifting again, drawing strength from both the pendant and my memories. Together, we could stand against the darkness. But as the dark tendrils surged forward, the voice returned. "You think help can save you? You will see your folly soon enough." I braced myself as the shadows lunged forward, ready to engulf everything in their path. I could feel the weight of the decision I had to make, a choice that would change everything. Would I embrace the energy or let it slip away? The shadows lunged, but I stood my ground. I could feel the warmth bubbling within me, fueled by memories that were now sharp and vivid. I focused intently on the guardian creature, trying to pull it into our circle of light. "Please," I shouted, "join us." The guardian shimmered and twisted, its light weaving through the trees toward us. It felt like a spark igniting a long-dormant flame. I sensed the bond strengthening, the warmth growing. But doubt tugged at me. Would it be enough against the darkness? Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced through my connection with the little creature by my side. I glanced down and saw it flickering like a dying star. "No!" I shouted in panic. "Hold on!" The old woman stepped closer, her face a mask of concentration. "You need to share your heart. Let them feel your energy." I nodded, closing my eyes for a moment. I pictured every joyful moment, every burst of laughter. I envisioned the sunlight pouring down on me, wrapping me in its golden glow. As I gathered all of that feeling, I poured it into the air, hoping the guardian would catch it. The light surged. I opened my eyes, feeling the energy pulse around me. The guardian joined us, spreading its light wide, pushing back against the dark tendrils. But the shadows weren't done yet. They lashed out, a furious storm of darkness seeking to drown our light. "Together!" I yelled. "Both of you, together!" Then I heard the voice again, low and slithering. "You think this will save you? You are nothing but a child playing with fire. I feast on fear." As if fueled by its words, the darkness intensified, slamming against our light in a desperate push. The guardian howled like a breeze through the treetops, urging us to fight harder. I felt an overwhelming end-of-the-world kind of fear creeping in. Would I have the strength to withstand it all? Just when I thought we'd waver, the little creature next to me tapped into something deep. Its glow flared bright, claws extended like a shield. In that moment, I felt it connect directly with me, stronger than ever. My heart thumped wildly as I embraced that bond. Together, we sent out a wave of light, not just as a defensive barrier, but as a warm embrace of energy that nestled into the shadows. I felt the darkness hesitate, recoiling for a moment. But then, with an unsettling crackle, the shadows swirled like a storm. "You cannot escape your fate," it roared, just as everything around us seemed to twist and change. That's when the clearing vanished. The trees dissolved into a swirling mist, and I found myself standing in a dark cavern. "What happened?" I gasped, looking around. The creatures were still with me, their lights flickering in the gloom. "You must find the truth," the old woman's voice echoed, distant and warped. "The darkness is a part of you now, whether you like it or not." Panic washed over me as I glanced back at the shadows. They were still there, but now they shifted with purpose. I had to know what they wanted, and if I didn't find out...
Soon, I was terrified of what would happen next. I stood there, my pulse racing, as the cavern felt both familiar and foreign. The shadows flickered, twisting like smoke in the confined space, and I felt an oppressive weight hanging in the air. I took a step back, heart pounding. The echoes of the old woman's voice replayed in my mind, mixing with the shadows' taunts. "Find the truth," I muttered to myself, trying to steady my breath. What did that even mean? I looked around the cavern. It was filled with strange symbols carved into the walls, glowing faintly, almost like they were alive. They pulsed in rhythm with the shadows, which seemed to grow bolder in response. Think, I urged myself. What was it I needed to discover? Suddenly, a memory flickered in my mind. A story about an ancient ritual centered around light and darkness. It came flooding back, faint but undeniable. I scrunched my eyes shut, trying to recall the details. There was something about facing fears directly, about understanding what they represented. "Maybe if I understand it," I started, letting the thought linger in the air. My hands trembled as I reached for the glowing symbols. Could they guide me? The moment my fingers brushed against the nearest symbol, a spark ignited in the air. I felt a connection surge through my body, a mix of warmth and cold electrifying my senses. My breathing quickened as images flashed in my mind. Visions of myself, small and vulnerable, failed attempts, all the times fear had wrapped around me like a serpent. That's what the shadows were, manifestations of my fear, waiting to consume me. Then I heard it again, the voice, all somber and sinister. "You cannot escape the truth. You must choose." "What do you mean?" I shouted into the oppressive darkness. I felt my voice shake, but the words carried a weight. The shadows quieted, swirling lazily for a moment, and then, penetrating the silence, came a low hum that reverberated through my bones. "Face me. Embrace what you fear, and only then will the light shine through." Taking a deep breath, I summoned courage from the bond I'd felt earlier, from the warmth of the guardian and the flickering creature by my side. I wasn't just a vessel for light, I was also worthy of it. "I won't let you take me down," I declared, standing a little taller. The cavern pulsed with energy as I spoke. The shadows ballooned, gathering themselves like a storm, darker than before, swirling around me. I closed my eyes and called forth my fears. I pictured every moment of uncertainty, every doubt, and every point when I'd felt small. But rather than fighting them, I opened my heart. I let them in, letting their weight sit along with me. Fear was a part of me, but it didn't define me. That's when I sensed a shift. The shadows stilled, hesitant now, and I felt my connection with the guardian growing stronger. I opened my eyes, and suddenly there was a heartbeat in the darkness, almost like it was taking notice. But before I could breathe a sigh of relief, the rocks underfoot trembled violently, sending shards of stone flying against the walls. The energy shifted abruptly. Something greater was coming. Instinctively, I stepped back, my heart racing, as the very fabric of the cavern began to crack and peel away. That's when I saw it. A massive dark figure emerging from the shadows, its eyes glowing with a fierce hunger. I froze, realizing this was no mere representation of fear. This was something real, something I had to confront. And as I stood there, paralyzed by the vision before me, I knew it was time to face whatever awaited me in the darkness. I stood there, heart pounding, fully aware that the dark figure looming before me was the embodiment of everything I had tried to escape. Its eyes glowed menacingly, and I could feel its power, a dark, intoxicating force pulling at me. It emanated a dread that made my skin crawl, but I couldn't afford to falter. The guardian beside me flickered, its light waning under the weight of the menace. But out of instinct, I reached down and gripped its warm fur tightly. It felt like a lifeline. "We can't let it take us," I whispered, though my words were shaky. "We're stronger together." The shadows twisted around the dark figure, and I could hear a voice from the depths, resonant and cold. "You believe you are worthy of the light? You are nothing but a child in the dark." "No," I said, finding a flicker of courage amidst the terror that wrapped around me like a shroud. "I am more than that. I refuse to let you win." With a sudden surge of energy, I called upon the warmth within me, pulling inspiration from my bond with the guardian. I remembered the flickering joy of life, the laughter, the light, the connections I'd made with others during my travels. That warmth coursed through me, igniting purpose. "Face your fear," the old woman's voice echoed in my mind. I gathered the energy around me, holding on to the thoughts of what it meant to be alive, to feel, despite the risks. I focused and directed that energy outward, aiming it towards the dark figure that threatened to overwhelm me. The dark entity roared, and I felt the cavern tremble as the shadows writhed and clawed toward us. "You think your light can extinguish me? I am darkness. I am eternal." I reached deeper within, not just for my own energy, but for the boundless energy of the forest I had once traversed, of the joys and sorrows entwined in the rhythms of life. "You are part of me," I shouted defiantly, "and I choose to embrace that. You do not define me." And with that declaration, a brilliant light erupted from the pendant around the small creature, illuminating every corner of the cavern. The light clashed with the darkness, revealing what I had both feared and embraced. The dark being recoiled, its form shifting and distorting as it flickered in and out of existence. The cavern walls seemed alive with energy, the symbols vibrating at the clash of light and dark, forming a bridge between worlds, the physical and the ethereal. "Join me!" I called into the chaos, urging the guardian forward. Together, we surged toward the dark figure, light pulsing from my heart, intertwining with the guardian's essence. The shadows snarled, shrieking as it was engulfed in our combined brightness. It fought back, a tempest of black swirling against the encroaching light, fear and anger emanating from it. But I pushed forward. "You will not win!" I screamed as I wrapped my consciousness around the darkness, pulling it to me. Not in anger, but in understanding. I'd faced these shadows within myself, the ugly, the uncertainty, the anguish. "I see you for what you are." The shadows convulsed violently, and in a flash of blinding light, the cavern exploded in brilliance. I felt the air rush past me, lifting me as the darkness melted away, revealing a world anew. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself standing in the forest, back where I had first entered the village.
The sun pierced through the branches, casting warm light across the ground, and the vibrant life of the forest greeted me. As I looked around, my heart sank slightly. I was back, yet everything felt different. The villagers were gone. Only whispers of their chants lingered in the air. My hands still felt warm from the bond I had forged. The necklace lay in my palm, glowing softly, a reminder of the choices made. But off in the distance, shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, elusive but still ever present. I took a deep breath and started to walk forward, knowing that while I had faced what I needed to, the journey wasn't over. The balance of light and dark was delicate, a constant dance that I would forever be a part of. The forest whispered its secrets around me, and I was forever changed by my experience. Questions lingered in the air. Was that darkness truly defeated? Had I just pushed it into a corner? Or was it waiting, biding its time to return? I'd never really know. But one thing was certain. I moved forward with a deeper understanding of fear, of connection, and of the endless complexities that shadowed my path. I wasn't just a traveler anymore. I was part of this world, forever navigating the thin line between light and dark, ready to embrace whatever awaited me next.